Good morning, Rotarians and guests. Welcome to the Rotary Club of Hudson. I'm Ron Strobel, the Sergeant at Arms, and our invocation this morning is by Rich Warfield. Could you please stand?
I know, it's hard to believe. Very hard to believe. Should I stay here? Ron? Ron doesn't want to see my legs because I have shorts on today. By the way, what a beautiful family Kristina has. Beautiful. Girls all have hair. Kristina has hair. All right, let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for this time with these fellow Rotarians and guests this morning. And let us go about our day with you in our mind and our hearts and everything we say, do, and act. And we pray for Kristina and the other speakers this morning that the holy and wholesome things will come from her mouth and it'll be constructive for all of us on this day. In your great and powerful name we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Rich.
Oh, I'm sorry. And Patricia. Amen.
And now to lead us in the pledge and the four-way test, Terry Bortnick.
Good morning, Rotarians. If you'll join me in the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And the four-way test of the things we say and do. Is it the number one, is it the truth? Number two, is it fair to all concerned? Number three, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number four, will it be beneficial to all concerned? You may be seated.
And to lead our meeting today is our president-elect, Terry Bortnick.
Good morning, everybody. I told a few people we're winging this today. Our service project this month is NAMI, as most of you know, and it's setting up housekeeping. So it's anything that would be typically used, paper towels, toilet paper, things of that nature, that they could set up household cleaning products, that they can set up their rooms and household usage with. We also have a request from the Akron Food Bank next Wednesday on the 21st from 4:30 to 6:30. They're requesting anybody's assistance who can spare a little time to organize some of the food products down there and get them separated and break down boxes and pack them up to go to the various food banks. So if you have a little time next week. Again, it's Wednesday, the 21st from 4:30 to 6:30. Just get a hold of me or see me after the meeting or something, and I'll give you the details on that, but they could use some extra hands if anybody's available. Okay, today I'm going to introduce Dave Basil. He's going to introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Terry. Good morning, fellow Rotarians and guests. Welcome to our meeting today. Today, we continue with our monthly theme of elections and government with two candidates to represent our community in the Ohio Senate. The order of their speaking has been determined by a draw of numbers. We have with us today Senator Kristina Roegner, the incumbent, and Dr. Patricia Getz, who is running for the office as well. Dr. Getz will speak first. Her prepared remarks will be 5 minutes in length, as will Senator Roegner's. Following their prepared remarks, there will be an opportunity for questions from members and guests. The candidates will be seated in the chairs on the stage. Their answers will be to the questions will be limited to 2 minutes each. It's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Getz. Dr. Getz grew up in the Toledo area, earned her bachelor's degree from Seton Hill College in Greensburg, Pennsylvania, and her medical degree from the University of Pittsburgh in 1974. She chose a career in child and adolescent psychiatry. In 1988, Dr. Getz and her family moved from Pittsburgh to Shaker Heights for both her career and her husband's. In 2005, after her husband Gregory was diagnosed with ALS, they moved to Hudson. They were attracted by the small town community warmth and also to be closer to family and Patricia's job in Canton. She has worked in public mental health at the county level as Chief Clinical Officer in Stark County with the Mental Health Board and at the state level as a consultant to the Ohio Department of Mental Health Office of Children's Services. Dr. Getz was also the first woman to be president of the medical staff of the Windsor Laurelwood Center for Behavioral Medicine in Willoughby. She has been an assistant professor of child and adolescent psychiatry at the Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine for over 30 years. Dr. Getz now works part-time in a public mental health clinic. She also consults the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Recovery Services Center at Case Western Reserve. Her extensive volunteer work includes participation in medical missionary work in Honduras and service on the board of Montana de Luz, a center for children with HIV in Honduras. Locally, she has been a board member of the Portage County Mental Health Board and the Hudson Coalition for Children's Mental Health. She is active locally in the Hudson Rotary Club, our club, where she is participating in the Gift of Life as a child protective officer, and she is a member of the Hudson League of Women Voters and is a trained dialogue facilitator with the Hudson Community DEI Initiative. Please join me in giving a Rotary welcome to Dr. Patricia Getz.
Good morning, fellow Rotarians and guests. Thank you very much for having me. As you probably know, I'm a child psychiatrist, but some things you may not know about me is that I am actually a boxer and that there are many similar things to boxing and politics. One of the first things about boxing is that you have to train and prepare. And I've been training and preparing for this job all my life. Well, you ask how? Well, as a child psychiatrist, I've spent years working with families, talking to them, listening, helping people compromise, and that's something that would be a really good ability to have in our Statehouse. I've also had the ability to actually go to people's homes. I'm one of the few psychiatrists that actually has made home visits. And I've been so impressed by how hard our people work and get very little to show for it. I've also, as you heard, worked on the state and county level. And so I have an understanding not only of how things are run, but I have an understanding of how things work in court systems, how things work on school systems. Growing up, I didn't have a lot of money, and so I had to work as a waitress to work my way through college and medical school. So I know the value of hard work, and I know how important education is. I've been very fortunate in this campaign to have an excellent campaign manager and a group of people around me that have been very helpful in my ability to get out to the voters. So I am prepared and I am trained for this experience. The second thing about when you're a boxer is that you have to take the punches. Growing up, I've had a lot of punches. When I was 6.5, my mother died and my family fell apart, and I was sent to an orphanage. We didn't have foster homes in those days, but I was a foster child for almost 2 years. And I can tell you that it is very traumatizing and it has an incredible impact on your psyche. So it's not something that we want for our children, but I was fortunate. I had a second grade teacher that was an incredible mentor to me and helped me feel that I was a very smart little girl and that I could go places. I was then adopted by a wonderful family that shared my dreams and helped me get into college. But because we didn't have a lot of money, that was why I had to work my way through. When I went to college and when I went to medical school, there was only 9 women in my class of 130. So the glass ceiling had not cracked yet. But in addition to those kinds of punches, I've also had other ones in my family. My youngest daughter, Meredith, is 37, but she does not walk and does not talk. So she's severely developmentally handicapped. I've been blessed in that she lives with a family who provides developmental disability services for 20 years. But it was very heartbreaking when she was diagnosed at 4 weeks of age. My middle daughter, Katie, died 20 years ago at the age of 21. And if any of you have lost a child, you know how heartbreaking that is. And then as you heard, 14 years ago, my husband died from ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. But I tell you these things to let you know that I am strong, I am tough, I'm resilient, and because of all this, I've become quite empathic. I've also been blessed, though, in that my oldest daughter, Emily, is an incredible attorney. She also is a wonderful mom to 4 children. And those of you out there that are grandparents can attest that being a grandparent is one of the most wonderful experiences out there. And so I love being a grandma. So I've gone with the punches, I've rolled with them, and I've been able to learn from them. The last thing about boxing is that you have to keep your eye on the opponent. I've done that. I've looked at what my opponent's record is. I am for gun safety. My opponent, I feel, is not. I am for women and their doctors making the choice about reproduction. My opponent is not. I am for environmental science. I'm not sure where my opponent stands on that. I think it's very important to keep my eye on my opponent. In our elections, people have not always played by the rules. And so I'm going to keep my eye on my opponent for that also, that I will play by the rules, but we will make sure to let people know that the rules have not been played with. So Ohio, we've got to move forward, and I'm the candidate to vote for.
Thank you, Dr. Getz. It's my pleasure now to introduce Senator Kristina Roegner. Senator Roegner is the current state senator. She represents the 27th Senate District, which currently includes Wayne County as well as portions of Summit and Stark counties. She was elected to the Ohio Senate in 2018, where she serves as chair of the Government Oversight and Reform Committee, as well as vice chair. I'm being timed. as well as Vice Chair of the Senate Ways and Means Committee. Additionally, she is also a member of the Senate Health and Human Services Committee and the Senate Transportation Committee. Prior to her time in the Ohio Senate, Senator Roegner was elected 4 times and served 8 years from 2010 to 2018 in the Ohio House as a state representative. She began her time in elected office in Hudson on City Council, where she served as an at-large member from 2005 to 2009. On City Council, Mrs. Roegner was the liaison to the Hudson Park Board and the Hudson Cable Television Advisory Committee, now the Hudson Community Television Advisory Committee. In 1990, Senator Roegner graduated cum laude with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from Tufts and began her career in the private sector as a field engineer and project manager for Westinghouse Power Generation. She went on to earn her MBA from Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Business and joined McKinsey & Company as a management consultant. Kristina Roegner has lived in Hudson for 20 years. She and her husband, Eric, have raised 3 daughters here and are proud to call Hudson home. Please join me in giving a Rotary welcome to Kristina Roegner.
Thank you for that introduction. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you to the Hudson Rotary for having us here today. All of you gathered here, those of you tuning in online, those of you that'll be watching on Hudson television at a later date, thank you for taking the time to get to know the candidates and the issues. So my name is Kristina Roegner. I am your state senator. And this morning, I'd like to share with you a bit about who I am, what I believe, what we've accomplished, and what I'll do when reelected. So first, who I am. So currently I represent the 27th Senate District in the Ohio House, or the Ohio Senate. That consists of Wayne County, Western Stark, and parts of Summit. Going forward, that'll just be all in Summit County. Prior to being in the Ohio Senate, it was mentioned, I served 8 years, was elected 4 times to the Ohio House, and elected twice to Hudson City Council. Each of those elections was competitive. And by the grace of God, we won every one of them. And it wasn't by accident. It was because the residents of Hudson, the residents of these districts know that I care about them. I care about the issues. I will work hard and I will get things done. Prior to my time in elected office, I was in the private sector. As was mentioned, I worked for Westinghouse Power Generation as an engineer. I was a management consultant for McKinsey, and I also started a small business. That experience in the business world, combined with being on Hudson City Council, really helped me be an effective legislator. And I just love to serve this community. Thank you for the opportunity to have done so. So second point, then, what do I believe? I am a common sense conservative. I believe in hard work, limited government, lower taxes. I believe I am pro-life. I believe when it comes to the economy that the government sets a stage that's inviting to business and gets out of the way and lets the free market work. And in terms of workers, I think government should do all we can to take down barriers so that people can work. So actually those last 2 points leads me into what have we accomplished? We have accomplished a great deal together. When I was first elected, the top tax rate was around 7%. Now it's down to 3.99%. We've reduced the number of brackets. With regulations, we've been able to get, I passed Senate Bill 9. That's a bill that I sponsored, cuts regulations in the state by 30% over the next 3 years. That's the aspirational goal. And cutredtape.org went live just this week. So very exciting stuff that we've been able to do together. So going forward, what I would like to do is continuation of my work. A lot of the work I've been doing is an occupational licensure. Joining Ohio to compacts of states so that if you're a nurse or a doctor or a physical therapist or an occupational therapist, that license is good in all the states that have joined the compact. That's taking down the barriers so people can get to work. It has been an absolute privilege and honor to serve you. I will continue that work. I care deeply about our community and hope to continue to serve you in that role. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Senator Roegner. Now, if the candidates would please come up and prepare for the questions. We will now enter the period when members and guests can ask questions. Please come to the microphone at the front when you want to present your question. We ask the questions be direct and to the point. Please avoid long preambles. In an effort to allow as many members and guests as possible to pose questions, the initial round of questions will be limited to one question per person. We'll circle back for added and follow-up questions if there is sufficient time. A question may be directed to a particular candidate. Each candidate, however, will have an opportunity to answer each question. Candidate answers will be limited to 2 minutes. I'd remind everyone that the candidates are our guests. Tough questions, fair questions are perfectly fine, and we encourage them. But I ask that everyone please be respectful again. The candidates are our guests. I'll now give the microphone.
Thank you, Mayor.
First question. I have been a businessman all my life, most of my life, very interested in business. And Senator Roegner, what have you been able to accomplish in bringing businesses or having more businesses in Ohio? And Pat, what do you think would be done to help bring more businesses to Ohio?
Thank you, Bill, for that question. So as I mentioned earlier in my statements, I believe it's so important that government set a stage it's inviting to business and then get out of the way and let the free markets work. That means lowering our taxes, passing regulatory reform, making sure that we have an educated workforce that's ready to go, infrastructure that's in place and strong. We have been doing this and the results are showing. It's super exciting. Like Intel, for example. Intel the CEO of Intel said that we are turning Ohio from the Rust Belt to the Silicon Heartland. They are investing $20 billion in phase 1 here in Ohio with up to potentially $100 billion invested. This is fantastic news. In terms of CEO Magazine, when I was first elected to the legislature, Ohio was somewhere near the bottom of the barrel. I don't remember exactly, but it was like in the low 40s out of 50 states. Now we are number 7. And that is to be celebrated. I mean, it's from the hard work that we've been able to accomplish together there that you're seeing that. In terms of, I just looked last night at Ohio Means Jobs. There's over 200,000 jobs posted out there. Well over 100,000 of those are over $50,000 a year, so good paying jobs. And we've only got like 30,000+ people filing for unemployment. So there's great opportunity here. Businesses are moving to Ohio. There is a lot to be celebrated. So thank you for the question. We're doing the hard work and the results are showing.
One of the things we have to pay attention to is the people who will come to Ohio for the jobs want a place that has amenities. And one of the most important amenity is a really good school system. So we really have to look at how are we funding our schools, and we have to make sure that we are not giving away the bank and not taxing some of the people that are coming in. The other thing is we have to support other businesses like medical and research businesses. Places like Pittsburgh have done that and has really expanded greatly. So we need to do more of that to bring in that kind of science and people that can really expand our horizons here. There's been a lot of work so far on solar panels making in Toledo. We need to make more environmental jobs available, and that will expand. Some of the people coming in are concerned about some of the social issues here in Ohio, so we do need to tackle those.
Morning. Do you support gun-free schools? Please explain why or why not.
Want me to answer it first?
Yes.
I do support gun-free schools. We need gun safety, and teachers, janitors, bus drivers having guns doesn't promote safety. The new bill that was passed, the training for teachers went from 700 hours down to 24. And it takes a lot to really do well in handling a gun. Having a gun in the classroom isn't safe. Kids can get a hold of it. Even if you have a lockbox, if any of you know kids, they can figure out ways to get into that. There are other things that we need to do to promote safety in our school, perhaps having less entrances. We also need to have looking at what is the root cause of a lot of the mass shootings. In schools, a lot of them are disaffected students. When I've talked to teachers, none of them want guns in the schools. And they've said that they can identify who these kids are. And so we need to do something about that. And the way we can do something about that is putting in evidence-based bullying prevention programs and to be able to target them. A study that looked at some school shooters who didn't become school shooters, who had thought about it, said the thing that kept them from doing that was somebody was either kind to them or someone became a mentor to them. So we have ways to work on the root cause of this.
Thank you. So here in Hudson, I do support a gun-free school. We are blessed. We have resource officers. We have a wonderful police department nearby that can be there in a matter of minutes. I believe this question might have referred to House Bill 99, although that was not explicitly mentioned, but we did pass House Bill 99, this General Assembly. What that does is it's entirely permissive. So a school can decide themselves whether or not to arm a teacher. It's up to the school board and it's up to that individual teacher or staff member. So it has to be both. While that doesn't make sense for any of the schools around here, because again, we're blessed to have the resources to defend these schools, there are other parts of Ohio that aren't as fortunate. So like Wayne County that I currently represent, there are other many rural districts where it can take 5, 10 or more minutes for a police officer to reach the school. And 5 minutes is a long time to have an active shooter. So if that question had to do with House Bill 99, again, that was permissive. It is for the benefit of the schools that aren't as fortunate as we are. Thank you.
Okay, this question is for Senator Roegner. Doctors across the nation are reporting that they fear repercussions when faced with medical situations that require life-saving care due to failed pregnancies. Ohio's heartbeat bill, which is now the law of the land in Ohio after you championed it in the Senate, is doing just that. It's making doctors second guess administering life-saving care they would not have otherwise thought twice about. The consequence of this is that women will die. Did you anticipate this at all when crafting this bill? And do you personally feel responsible for the lives of those women?
Thank you, Nicole, for that question. And as you mentioned in the question 2 times, you said life-saving care. The heartbeat bill and all the pro-life bills that have passed through the General Assembly, all of them have provisions for the life of the mother. So if it is indeed life-saving care, you absolutely can perform the abortion. I am pro-life. I believe in the sanctity of life. And I'm proud to defend the most innocent and vulnerable among us, the unborn. And Ohio is a pro-life state. So the supermajority in both the House and Senate support these pro-life bills. So again, I am proud to be pro-life. If it is indeed life-saving care, every single one of these bills that we've passed does permit the doctors to perform the abortion. Thank you for the question.
Well, the problem is that what is the definition of life-saving care? And the physicians are really in a quandary about this. For example, with my very first pregnancy, I had a miscarriage at 12 weeks and I began to hemorrhage. I had a procedure called a D&C, which is technically an abortion. I was not in medical jeopardy at that point. I didn't have a low hematocrit. My life wasn't in jeopardy, But by the definition of what we physicians are trying to figure out what that means, my doctor would not have done the DNC until I was really critical. The same thing goes for if a woman is diagnosed with a cancer that's very sensitive to the hormones of pregnancy. Do you wait until the cancer has spread everywhere before she is treated with chemotherapy that would kill the fetus or do an abortion? But at 6 weeks, she's not in medical jeopardy. She would be in medical jeopardy at 3 months or 4 months. The same thing with a woman who has serious heart disease. At 6 weeks, she's not in medical jeopardy, but she would be at 3 months or 4 months. So it puts doctors in the position of having to be and think like lawyers, and that's not what we're trained to do. We are trained to do no harm, and now we are in a position where we have to decide to do harm to our women patients. And I think that was a very unintended consequence of this bill that should be thought about.
This is for both candidates. I would like you to give us your thoughts about what you would recommend the state of Ohio include in a climate action plan to address the issues that are challenging the state of Ohio and its transition or lack thereof to sustainable energy future.
Well, certainly climate change is real and we need to have a plan. I believe in science and I believe in facts, and we need to really get on that train right now. It's very serious. Ohio did pass a bill called H2O Ohio that had many good parts to it. The problem is that it's not been well funded. A lot of this bill was going to look at the runoff from farms into Lake Erie that caused the toxic blooms, and there's a whole lot of components to that, but we need to really fund it entirely. We need to support the Lake Erie St. Lawrence Water Compact. We need to start looking at how we can beef up our solar and wind energy. Only 2.7% of our electricity in Ohio is from renewables, and that's much lower than our neighboring states. One of the problems is to have a good renewable, you have solar, but you also have to have wind. And with the setbacks that are now in place, it's really difficult to have many wind turbines. So we need to look at that. We need to look at green jobs. We need to increase that. We need to look at all of our new buildings to make them green buildings, to follow the LEED's recommendations on what the building should be. We need to support electric vehicles and to support having more charging stations. So these are just some things that we need to do, but we really need to do things now because it's so important for our environment and for our children and our grandchildren.
Thank you. So I actually come from the public utility industry. That was before I was in elected office. And I understand from my work in that sector that we do need to have diversity in our portfolio. That includes everything from nuclear, gas, coal, all the way through green energy. It all helps. It's important for us to have reliable energy and abundant energy. That is not only good for our residents, but it's what businesses are looking for as well. Again, Intel moving here, we have reliable and abundant energy in the state of Ohio. That being said, H2 Ohio was mentioned, and I was proud to support H2 Ohio. It was a bipartisan, it was proposed by the governor. It was supported in a bipartisan manner. It's to keep our waterways, Lake Erie, clean, and we have funded it. Many millions of dollars have gone to it, and I'm sure we will continue to do so. I do believe it's important that we keep our waterways clean. I also am a strong supporter of keeping green space open. From my time on Hudson City Council when we got the YDC property. We've dedicated a good portion of it over to the parks. I think it's important to preserve that land for future generations. So that's my answer on that question. My follow-up on this last one was, and I'm sorry about your miscarriage. I'm sorry to hear about that. But when you have a miscarriage, the baby is is passed. It's either passed away in you or it's passed outside your body. But either way, in that case, a DNC would absolutely be permitted, and a DNC in and of itself is not an abortion. Thank you for the question about the environment and all these questions. These are great, thoughtful questions.
Hi, good morning. This question is for both candidates. Move it up. Okay. Oh, okay, well, I'll hold it like that. Okay, the existing policy in Ohio states a transgender student that has gone through hormone transition for at least a year can compete in female sports. Are you in favor of the impending bill that requires them to have female organs? If a student has gone through transition and identifies as female, are they not female?
So thank you for that question. I am as a woman, as a mother of 3 daughters, all athletes, I am a strong supporter of protecting women's sports. I do believe that men and women are biologically different. They're created differently. Men have stronger, more dense bones, stronger muscles, bigger lung capacity. So I think we do need to make sure that there's a differentiation there. There are 2 bills in the General Assembly. One is in the House. The other one is Senate Bill 132. And I'm a sponsor of Senate Bill 132 that's currently in the Senate. It's currently in Senate committee that would protect women's sports from that end. So.
My understanding from the bill, though, is that this bill would target any girl who is in sports in middle school, high school, and college, so that anybody can go up to any girl and say, we don't think you're a girl. And that girl, to participate in sports, would be required to have the internal and external genitalia exams, testosterone, and chromosomes test. So if someone doesn't like you, or you're the star athlete and you happen to be 5'11", but you have blonde hair and blue eyes, they could still say, we don't think you're a girl. And that would be totally traumatic. Psychologically, as a child psychiatrist, that would be awful to a young girl to have that happen. And then the other thing people aren't talking about, these tests are extremely expensive and they would not be covered by insurance. These are not medically they're not medically needed. So that is another unintended consequence of this bill. So I don't see this as a bill saving women's sports. I see it as a bill as ruining women's sports, because I can tell you, I have a granddaughter, and if she was thinking about being in sports, I would be worried that somebody would target her, and I would say, don't join the scholastic sports, do something else.
Hi, I'm Mike Donovan from Hudson. The current education system of funding has been declared unconstitutional 4 times. Do you support the current method of funding through local property taxes, or do you propose or support any different changes or improvements? Thank you.
Well, I know there's been an attempt over the years to make changes. And the most recent one was called the Fair Funding Plan. So it's not a law, it was a plan, and it has a lot of merit. The problem is that it's a plan, and that each budget, it has to be reviewed and looked at. And my understanding from all the people that are on school boards is that it wasn't funded fully. And so school boards and schools don't have a good idea of what they're actually going to get. So that's very problematic. So we really need to come up with a plan that is put in law, that's codified, and that schools can know what they're getting, and that we can look at, hopefully at some point, lowering those property taxes.
Thank you for the question. So Ohio operates on 2-year budget cycles. It's called a biennium. So we And I was happy to vote for that fair school funding plan. It was it was in part of the budget. It was originally started by Speaker Cupp, who's a Republican, and Representative John Patterson, who's a Democrat. It started as House Bill 1 in the last General Assembly, but it was rolled into this current operating budget. And it was supported by both sides of the aisle. And again, I was proud to support that. And in fact, I heard our representative, our state representative just yesterday say that he was proud to support it and that he believes that it is now constitutional. And he's a Democrat. So I'm glad to hear that we have Republicans and Democrats supporting this fair school funding plan. And I believe with the current makeup that you have in the General Assembly, that will continue. Because all of us that voted for it the first time, we're going to vote for it again. And again, Ohio operates in 2-year cycles. We can't appropriate money for 10 years from now or 20 years from now. It's every 2 years. So, but I was happy to do that.
So I want to redirect the conversation for a second back to the House bill about transgender women's sports. As someone who is still in high school and has friends who do compete in sports, and I've read through the bill myself, I took the time and I noticed that Senator Roegner, you were shaking your head when Dr. Getz mentioned that this would affect all women. I read the bill and from my understanding, it does. However, if it doesn't, could you just explain why it doesn't? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So this just saying broadly that this will affect all women. If you imply it's negative, that's not true. But if it protects all women or protects women's sports, that's why it's called the Protect Women's Sports Bill. The intention is to allow girls to have, and just this is the whole point of Title IX, so that girls can have sports where they can compete in their own programs. I would like to point out, though, that this bill, Senate Bill, and it's Senate Bill 132, has not even had its first hearing yet. It's still in committee. I mean, it's not had any public hearing. It's not even had the sponsor testimony, nothing. But if and when that bill were to move forward, I would welcome comments from anybody and everybody. And I know my colleagues in the Senate would as well, to improve the bill. That's the whole process. You can make amendments. If there are things that don't make sense in the bill, we want to hear about that because we want to make changes. We want to make the bill stronger and we would love to hear from you. Thank you. And in fact, I would, on all of the podiums or in between the chairs there, my cell phone number is on there. It's my personal cell phone number. Please, you can call me, you can text me directly. Of course, you're also always welcome to reach out to my Senate office. We will help facilitate you coming to Columbus if and when that bill even has its first hearing. We would love to hear from you on that and any other issue. Thank you.
Again, the problem with this bill is that if it's targeting transgender kids, how do you know who is transgender? You don't, unless you do these exams. So that's why, again, the way the bill is written is that it could target any girl. The other thing that this bill has, my understanding, and you can correct me, Senator Roegner, if I'm wrong, but if somebody accuses, accuses your daughter, you have no legal recourse against the accuser, that they are indemnified, that nothing can happen to them. If somebody just doesn't like your daughter and they do it, there's nothing you can do about it. And that's generally not the way it works in our courts. So there could be a lot of things going on that are really nasty. Maybe it'll be written differently, but I think the way the House bill is written, that's the way it's written. So you're going to have to do a lot of hard thinking that if you were just going after transgender athletes, how are you going to do that respectfully? And how are you going to be able to figure that out? Because I can't figure out how you would do that unless you invade their privacy and get their medical records, which is against the law.
Thank you.
a second to get down there. Excuse me. Didn't like going downhill on a cane. I don't want to fall from this. Thank you, James. First, let me thank Senator Roegner and Dr. Guest for coming today. You're always welcome at Rotary. Please come back again. I have a question to ask of Senator Roegner, please. We are very, very blessed in this community to have the support of the state government in preserving our community, and particularly the capital grants program that has helped so many things in Hudson. A couple of things come to my mind is the support to the school system. The other one is Barlow Center. The other one is very dear to our heart, and that is the restoration of the cabin on the green. The whole process of developing decisions on the grant making for the capital program is a little bit of a mystery to me, and I'm sure to a lot of people in this room. Senator Roegner, could you elaborate on that a little bit as to how those decisions are made? And thank you again.
Oh, my pleasure. Absolutely. Thank you, Phil. So the capital budget, it happens every 2 years. Every 2 years, we have an operating budget and then a capital budget. And representatives in the House and senators in the Senate, we go through our community, we talk to people, we find out what's important to our community, specifically the portion of community projects. So here in Hudson, I was able to get $75,000 for the restoration of the Boy Scout cabin, as you mentioned here, which I know is important to this Rotary. I was happy to do that. Also Barlow Farm, the Baldwin Bus House, significant funding there. But to me, it's important that we continue to maintain the character of our history, maintain these historical structures that are just so important to the heart of our community. How do I get it done? Well, I'm part of the majority party in the General Assembly. I have the respect of my colleagues down there. So what I do is I would put together a list of priorities. I work with the organizations like the Rotary to find out why this is important to our community. How much will it cost? How much skin do you have in the game? What's the nexus with the state? How is it used for the public? And we put together these informational packages basically, and then we submit them to the finance chair. And the current finance chair is Senator Dolan, who's also a Republican. And so I've been so incredibly thankful to be as successful as I have been to be able to bring money back, not only to Hudson, but millions back to the Senate district. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a joy to work with you, with the Hudson Rotary and the other organizations in Hudson and around our community. Thanks for the question.
Thank you very much.
Of course, I don't have any idea how this works, but I can tell you that when I'm in the Senate, I will do what I can to help all of Summit County get whatever grants we can get.
Good morning, and thank you for an excellent debate. I don't think the media does a great job of covering your activities in the legislature or in the community, for either one of you. Two parts. One, where do I find out more about your accomplishments? And two, could you possibly maybe list 4 or 5 of your major accomplishments over the past couple of years? Thank you.
I know as far as the state, there are a number of good news resources out of the state capitol. The state news, Gower has some things. Even the Columbus Dispatch writes a lot. Even our Akron Beacon Journal does do, I think, a pretty good job. My accomplishments have been in terms of working in the community, working with people. I've spent a lot of time talking to people at the doors. Since April, I've been knocking on many doors in Hudson, Twinsburg, Macedonia, Akron, West Akron, Northfield, Stowe, Cuyahoga Falls, working my way around the whole district. So by being out and talking to people, I think that's an accomplishment that I have have had. I think my working with families and seeing the difficulties that they have, the lack of funding that we've had for mental health and mental retardation, and the lack of funding for substance abuse. Those are areas that are important to me, and I would work on that very hard in the Senate. So being on the ground, I think, has been my best accomplishment, that I have seen what's out there and what we need to do.
Thank you. I am super excited about that question because you're right. The media has not reported on a lot of the great work that's been happening in Ohio. Personally, I've had 10 bills just this General Assembly passed and landed on the governor's desk and signed by the governor. And that's more than any other representative, more than any other state senator, this General Assembly. And I'm incredibly proud of that work. In terms of recognition for it, well, I would say a lot of the particular professional organizations have given me awards. Again, I believe I've probably won more awards than any other senator or rep this GA as well. Like the Ohio Society of CPAs, I'm their Legislator of the Year in 2021. The National NFIB, National Federation of Independent Businesses, again, Legislator of the Year. And I could go on, but I won't. But those independent groups, even the Department of Defense has thanked me for my work, particularly with the compacts. But none of that's making it in the media. But beyond these independent groups, what is most satisfying to me is like when I am going door to door, and we've knocked on tens of thousands of doors just this cycle. Like, for example, I came up to the person's door, I was knocking on it, they weren't home. So I was turning around to leave, I left my lid on the door, and as I'm walking down the driveway, a car pulls in, and it's a woman, she looks tired. She gets out of her car. It doesn't look like she really wants to talk to anybody, but I see she has a nurse's badge. And I said, oh, are you a nurse? And yeah. I go, have you heard of the Nurses Compact? I sponsored that bill. And her eyes lit up and she like literally started jumping up and down and hugged me. She's like, thank you, thank you, thank you for that work. That the licensure compact bill, what it does is, she goes, now my sister, who's also a nurse, can move back to Ohio. They are so excited about that. So to me, that is the most like rewarding recognition that we can get. Yeah, and so I love that. And again, thank you for that question.
Sorry, but well, go ahead. I'm actually a member of the Rotary here on the school board. I had a question related to school funding. So anyway, go ahead.
While it's going, if anyone has any questions we don't have time for, again, I am happy to answer questions. My phone number is on there. Call me directly. I'm happy to answer any questions afterwards too.
In a more general way, I'm going to circle back to the environment because Ohio is currently rated as the 5th most toxic state in our nation. And there have been a number of votes that you've taken, Senator Roegner, which prohibit local governments from like installing more wind and solar power, enacting fees on plastic bags, which I might mention works really well in New York City. People have adapted and it's just great. And in fact, a vote that was opposed by the Business Roundtable. So I'm curious where you see the line in balancing when local governments are allowed to run themselves and when the state government is just going to come in and take those rights away.
Thank you for that question. And again, having served on Hudson City Council, again, elected twice here to Hudson, I've been able to bring that perspective of local governments to the State House. And I think that's a very valuable experience to have served on municipal government and local government before you go to the legislature. Because it helps you understand that balance when it does make sense, because Ohio generally is a local control state. And I believe that's a good thing, whether it's the city government or even the school boards. People in our community should be able to go and talk to their local elected officials and also their state officials and federal officials for that matter, about things that are important to them. When it comes to certain particular topics, whether it's plastic bags or windmills, I do my best to talk to the individuals that are concerned. And remember, I currently represent a very diverse district, from the suburbs here, Hudson, Twinsburg, all the way down to very rural Wayne County. The interests are diverse, the perspectives are diverse, but I do my very best to find the balance, bringing my experience from the public sector, the private sector, and my experience on Hudson City Council municipal government to bear. Thank you.
There has been an erosion to the home rule ideas in Ohio, and that we need to get back to that. We've seen that in terms of the gun issues, that cities can't ban guns in certain places. And I think the same thing is going on with the environmental issues. So we need to get back to the way our constitutional is written about home rule, and to really look at that and to look at our laws in that particular lens.
Okay, thank you.
Those are all the questions for which we will have time today. Again, thank you to the candidates. I am certain they would be happy to answer any additional questions. If you can stay around for a couple of minutes perhaps, or you can contact the candidates directly. So again, let's give a Rotary welcome and thanks to the candidates for joining us this morning. And I will turn the meeting back over to President-elect Terry Bortnick.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to our guests. I think everyone enjoyed your presentation this morning, and I hope we all got value from it. Let's have our Rotabuck drawing. Dr. Getz, would you like to come up and draw our? Oh, okay. Well then, Ms. Roegner, would you like to come up and draw our winner for us this morning? One person that likes me here. Thank you. Okay, number 599574. Oh, yay. You've got $11 today.
Careful what you have to do to win this thing, to win a vote around here.
Okay. All right, double check, make sure there's a. Not today, not today. Reminder, I forgot to mention earlier, we do have a board meeting after the meeting today. So those of you who are on the board, if you would please join us in the other room. We'll do that. And again, thank you to our speakers. Thank you to all of our visitors. We love having visitors, and have a good day, everyone. Go out there and make it a good one. What do we do with the old markers? Hey, Jay.
Hit the bell. Could you hit the bell, please? Take the hammer and hit the bell with it. Yeah, thank you. I was going to ask about the backpack bill.
Oh.
Because
Give